Hello and welcome to the Crafty Pint podcast. I'm Will.
I'm James, and apologies up front if both of us are coming across a little bit croaky this weekend. It's been a long weekend here in Victoria. We were both away at the same event, didn't manage to bump into each other, but both woke up on Monday morning somewhat diminished when it came to our voices. Mine was actually completely non-existent on Monday morning. Great way to start my 50th year on the planet, but thankfully has recovered quite considerably by now. It's also been a pretty challenging week, not just for my vocal cords, but for the beer industry. There was some news that started sort of filtering through from Brisbane late last week, which has been confirmed this week by the team at Newstead Brewing.
Yeah, so unfortunately, one of the pioneering of breweries of Brisbane's craft beer scene has closed the doors permanently. Obviously, a lot of breweries at the moment in southeast Queensland are dealing with the impact of Cyclone Alfred, but this, they say, is completely unrelated to that. More to do with the 2022 floods, where they were severely impacted. They couldn't brew for months and months and months. And then on top of that, they also point to the current challenges many in the industry are facing, is showing that they just couldn't keep operating, basically.
Yeah, well, I paid a visit several months after the 2020 floods. I mean, the floodwaters there did come in like several feet high, halfway up. Some of the machinery in the brewery took weeks to clear out. They couldn't brew for a number of months then, and I guess there was all the repair work that had to be done. The venue was, completely underwater as well. I think they've done what they can to try and come back, but you try to come back from that on the back of COVID, which would have impacted them with the closure of Suncorp Stadium across the road that used to send a lot of people their way on game days, into cost of living crisis, everything else that the industry's fighting against. So it does sound like certainly staff and the shutdown of the venue came pretty quickly, but it's been many years sort of, I guess, in consideration. I think they were looking to sell the business from what they were saying. I just guess it's really sad. I think, they opened a few months after Green Beacon, so 2013, those two breweries opened very close to each other. Newstead brought this fantastic level of hospitality. It was certainly, I guess, the first real sort of brew pub, high quality food, that kind of thing that Brisbane had seen. They've been very supportive. A lot of other beer businesses coming along, a lot of collaborations, a lot of stuff with the arts, a lot of stuff with sport, just haven't been able to make it work. I guess they live on in a way because they moved. Well, they had their original Doggett Street site. They took over the bigger venue and bigger brewery in Milton a few years after first opening. The Doggett Street site was sort of taken over by Working Title, where one of the founders of Newstead Brewing is one of the founders there, Mark Howes, with his mate Luke Shields. So I guess there's some continuity, from the original Brewstead team carrying on through Working Title. But yeah, Newstead Brewing is no more.
Yeah, and I mean, another sign of just how cash-strapped and difficult the industry is the news from Convoy Kegs as well, that they've been put in receivership. It looks like one of their main backers has decided to not invest anymore. So we'll see what happens there. We're still working on the story at the moment, so there'll be more information on the Crafty Pint website once you're hearing the podcast. But
I guess for people who don't know Convoy, they're one of the biggest sort of leasers and suppliers of kegs to the industry. We've worked with them in the past on Pint of Origin. Often, if you walk past any pub or brewery, you're going to see a lot of their kegs with the red stripes on. And they've been expanding, forming partnerships elsewhere, but clearly they've been caught up. And so we'll see what happens on that front. We'll find out a bit more before the podcast goes live. I guess in non-closure sale receivership news, we had a nice positive story from Guy Southern in WA.
Yeah, about so Funk Cider is a name that a lot of people in WA would know. They've been operating for some time. They've moved into beer more recently, and they've created a beer, the Farmhouse Ale, with their own barley and wheat that they've worked with some local people to get malted. So it's really good. I spoke to them a number of years ago, and they were talking about putting this brewery in, or having the capacity to brew rather, and then realizing that they wanted to do it their own way, and what can they do differently? They have a farm, they're farm based, they understand ingredients and things like that, so they wanted to really showcase that, and I think it's a really interesting thing. We'll see them, I'm sure, work with other malts and things like that, so it'll be exciting space to watch.
Yeah, and I think it's another example of breweries and other businesses in the beer industry working in a sustainable manner, looking to cut down beer miles, whatever you want to call it, ingredient miles, and do things that, I guess really highlight the partnership between breweries and agriculture, especially when the brewery is the same bit of agriculture supplying for the beer. Looking a bit further ahead on the other side of the country, Sydney Beer Week have opened expressions of interest for the 2025 festival in October. They came back last year after a few years off. A little bit different this year. Last year they only wanted events to be hosted at venues. This year they're allowing breweries to get on board and host events as well. So you can jump on the Sydney Beer Week website to get your expressions of interest in for events before the end of April.
Yes, and also make sure you get your Bluestone Brewery of the Month shout-outs in. Cypher, as I said last week, the team was stoked. So if you want to really impress your local brewery or really make them feel special, make sure you get the applications in. Yeah,
and you can do that at craftypint.com/bluestone, BLUESTONE, and we'll be announcing the next winner pretty soon.
And as is fast becoming tradition on this podcast, I have another apology to make in terms of names and pronunciations. Last week, when we were talking about Bright Brewery, I called their Evan Craney. Accidentally, I called him Evan Cray, who works for Bentspoke. It's a mistake I often make, often silently rather than recorded. So unfortunately, I forgot to correct that one before the podcast went out.
Yeah, you didn't have an editor there just to correct it as it came out of your mouth.
Normally, I have the other one standing over me reminding me who's who. So apologies to Evan Craney and to Evan Cray as well.
Yeah, who wants to be confused with the other one? Anyway, about time to head to our main chat of the week. This is one of the two podcast interviews I recorded while I was in Sydney a couple of weeks ago. Feels like a lifetime ago in some ways. I headed up to Brookvale. We've done a fair bit of coverage on what's been happening in Brookvale and the Northern Beaches. There's been breweries there for quite some time, like Dad and Days were there for a number of years. Nomad have been there 10 years, etc. But now there's this real clutch of them, incredibly close together. They launched the Brookie Trail, one of many ale trails around the country, a few weeks ago. And so I went and caught up with Johnny Bucknell, one of the founders of Freshwater Brewing Co., who prior to that was working for the Northern Beaches Brewery at Modus in Mona Vale, and to Joel Ridzwan, who works for Seventh Day Brewery, literally across the road, about 60 metres away from Freshwater. So we had a good chat about beer tourism, what they've been doing to sort of promote or encourage people to come out there, promote each other. They had their second thing was Brookie Fest not too long ago, launched the trail with a 3-day event. There was dash and racing, chili eating, all manner of, there was lots of beer and live music and stuff as well. But it's pretty cool what they're doing, and, understanding why they're doing it, have a bit of a chat about beer tourism as well as the personalities of each venue. Bit of an apology for that one there. We've just switched to using some new cameras and a new setup recently to, improve the quality of what we're doing. But there was a slight glitch. We're not quite sure why. But for a few minutes earlier on in the video, audio's fine, but the video does get a little bit stuttery. It fixes itself after about 6 minutes. So if you are watching this on YouTube, I apologise for the stuttery vision at the start. But aside from that, after the break, we'll join Johnny and Joel and Will.
Yeah, great. So if you enjoy it, make sure you like and subscribe. Cheers.
Cheers.
One of the best things about this craft beer industry of ours is the way everyone shares, collaborates, and lends a helping hand when needed. But as so often happens, those good deeds can sometimes go unnoticed. Well, now with the support of Rallings Labels, Stickers and Packaging, who are themselves known for their outstanding service and strong relationships with the industry, we're delighted to give every good beer citizen a bit of well-deserved recognition. We're calling on you to nominate anyone who's gone out of their way to help you out. It doesn't matter how big or small, it's just a wonderful way to give that person or business a shout out and thank you. We'll highlight the best nominees on the Crafty Pint podcast, and lucky winners of the Done a Rallings Good Deed will win a Rallings gift voucher and earn a big thumbs up from friends and colleagues. So what are you waiting for? Give that good deed a shout out. Head to craftypint.com/rallings and nominate today.
Johnny and Joel, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me up in Brookie. Apologies that it's day 5 of my very hectic Sydney trip, and I look like death cooled down.
You look
great. It's a long drive on the terrible Spit Bridge, so thanks for coming out our way.
Yeah, no, it's good to be here. We get to how close all the breweries are, but it has been quite an amazing thing. But I thought we'd sort of start with probably the most recent news for the Brookvale area, which is the launch of the Brookie Trail, part of a beer tourism kind of thing. I don't know if one of you want to sort of tell me sort of how that's come about and what the Brookie Trail is?
So Brookie Trail, we've been working together as a group of breweries for a while now, and the Brookie Trail launch is kind of the official launch of it. But essentially, Brookvale has 7 breweries and 3 distilleries, and we're all on WhatsApp groups together. We're all neighbours essentially, and so last year we did a heap of events and activations where we kind of got people to Brookvale to kind of discover more than the 1 or 2 places that they were going. And then this year we kind of went hell for leather and really pushed it hard, kind of got some decent branding. Kentaro, a really amazing illustrator, pulled together some amazing, he's a local guy, loves a beer. And
Is that how he was paid? Bit of contra?
I think he
got paid.
I think it worked both ways. I think he got paid, but he also got some contract. But yeah, he's a legend and perfect for it. He's a real kind of Northern Beaches kind of figurehead. And we worked out essentially a 3-day festival to kick it off, just to get people hopping from venue to venue, because you hear heaps of like, can we have a map? Like, where is it? Even though like we're super close to each other and it's 2 minutes walk, you kind of don't know what you don't know. So having a map for people to discover, like even you, when you've been zipping around the place, I think you've been kind of amazed that.
Oh, I went to move my car from out the front of Buckety, so I've been there an hour. I don't know how tight they are around here. I'll go to Dad and Dave's next, and I drove that way. And then when I was actually been around and parked the car, I was like,
Same spot.
It's actually
You got closer to the other one.
Yeah, it's literally like, it's probably not even 100 meters.
Yeah.
And then when I was parking the car above here earlier today, you can see Buckety's out the back, and you guys are across the road. Like, it is actually quite
so
nuts.
if we do have a little bit of muscle on our big brothers, the Inner West Ale Trail, is that our platform is tiny, and 10 minutes you can do the whole lap, basically, maybe 15 minutes, depending how many beers you've had.
Yeah, Nick was like, Broken Bay's a bit further out the way. I was like, how far? And it's like, he goes, like 700 meters.
Exactly.
It's not a long way.
Yeah. You don't really get to sober up in between places, so you got to plan what you're doing. So that was the intention. And we all, we're small businesses all hustling to get people here. And so the thinking was always like, well, let's just team up. Like, we're not competing against each other. We're just trying to get people out the house, and which is hard enough,
Off the couch.
and then B, here to whatever we have to throw. Like Buckety's and Seventh Day are particularly well known for their live music. And so it's like, if that's what you're into, go for it. If you want a gin and tonic, there's plenty of places to go. If you want a beer garden, if you don't want a beer garden, if you've got kids, if you've got dogs, whatever it might be, you kind of find it, and stronger together.
Something for everyone. And we realized that if twice as many people come to the suburb, it doesn't bloody matter which venue they go to, because every single one of us will prosper. So the idea is amplify the suburb, and something that 2025 will lead in really hard is, how do we get the punters to come nice and early? Because if you come out nice and early, especially on game day, you're going to get to experience a whole lot of different places in some kind of like festival-like activity zone.
And so in terms of like who's put it together, has it been funded or put together by the breweries, or have you managed to get like government support or grants or anything like that to get it going?
So Seventh Day applied for the Venue Accelerator grant
and of
last
course, you're
year.
from Seventh Day.
That's me. Sorry, I should introduce
say
myself.
that at the start.
I work at Seventh Day.
Not
Johnny's
got his freshwater hat on to help.
We didn't really do a good job at that.
So Seventh Day were recipients of the Venue Accelerator grant by the New South Wales government, and then piggybacking off that, there was an opportunity to go for a group grant, which Brookvale Arts District have also got. Some of our comrades in Brookvale. We hazily thought, let's just have a stab at trying to get this grant, not really knowing what we were doing or if we'd be eligible. Somehow we were successful. Part of the reason that we were successful was that we'd already banded together. We'd done Brookie Fest inaugural 2024 and it had worked.
So we hired a grant writer. That's kind of useful.
So we had a lot of data in front of us that looked really good. So we got picked up for the group grant. And that has definitely amplified our opportunity to really resource the suburb.
And is it open to just breweries, or are there other producers on there? If other people come along, can they be part of it, or like how's it working?
So the intention was, like, when we first got going, it was all bootstrapped and we did it ourselves. It was like, we're running our own businesses. We're all super busy anyway, but like get it like proof of concept up. And now we're there, we've got the grant and we could get the awareness out. The next stage is the other producers. The zoning in this area is you kind of have to be a producer wholesaler. You can't just open a small bar around the corner unless historical. And so pretty much everyone that isn't already there is kind of doing something kind of interesting and worthwhile discovering. So, you know, there's coffee roasters, get them on the list. You know, there's an amazing surf museum, and they do heaps of like pop-up events.
There's the ice cream place I've seen.
Scoop
It Over, whatever it's called.
Yeah,
I like the name.
there's so many little pockets, and like when you're wandering around an industrial area, you kind of don't know what's around each corner, and so we're going to help get people to discover it. And you know, we know there's a kind of a big push to promote and improve Brookvale, and we know it's only going to get better. So we're just kind of our concern and our sort of focus is kind of what's epic about this area is the organic nature and how it grew, like independent small businesses that have just, you know, got a passion, and you know, whether it be, you know, anything, we don't, as things get gentrified, it's quite easy for the little guys to get squashed, and you know, developers come in, and so we're just trying to foster that community, and keep it within everyone's interest.
And what's been the impact today? I know it's only like, as we're talking now, I'm not sure when the show's going out, but like it's been 3 or 4 weeks since you actually officially launched the concept. So has it been sort of, you obviously had the big opening weekend, but have you had sort of media coverage, seen more people were talking about it? Like,
we already felt like the Brookie Trail existed at the very start of 2024, but we hadn't given it, or we'd given it a couple of shit names, and then we finally came
Can you tell us what the shit names were?
The collective. No, just I feel bad if there's a collective out there. There's heaps of collectives, and then we realize, that's just talking about ourselves. We're supposed to be talking about the verb of what you do. Like you're supposed to trail around the suburbs. So our head honcho, Jackie Stanton, came up with the name. She's like, this is the name. You need to tell people that they need to hop around. They need to get here early, and there's heaps going on.
With a name like that, I think she should be a big beat producer as well. Jackie Stanton just sounds like it's got that sort of.
When you get to meet her, she is so badass, and she's looking after a bunch of precincts who've got the grants, and she's so passionate about little blobs of suburbs just amplifying and working together.
I mean, I think for us, it's like we've got a platform now. And we're organized. We've got a website, you know, crazy. And I think
how 2010 of you.
I know. It's very cutting edge. But you know, it's a platform to build on. And I think like actually the awareness is there. Like we had a bit more cash to get posters out, endorse it properly, get some t-shirts. That's important. And I think
it seems to be themed in a very freshwater sort of palette as well. Or did you
nothing
get
to do with me? I mean, I was quite happy about it, but it's good. But I think it's successful just purely because of the awareness. And I think, you know, you'd be amazed by how many people come to this area for the first time that live like a K away. You're like, what?
I mean, how would you, someone who hasn't been to Brookvale before, how would you describe it? Because, you know, it's been a few years since I was up here, and driving in, and you're like, it's not the beaches of Northern Beaches. Like it's functional. Like it's a lot. You know, there's shopping malls. There's
it's an industrial suburb for sure. It's not like the beaches. Curly, DY, Freshie are only 5 minutes drive from here to go for a surf, and then you come in this way, and it's just a gravelly burb.
It's like the town that's sort of in the middle of like a farming region that has all the tractor and the grain shops. Like Brookie's is supplying everything around it.
It is the supply suburb, and it's always been known as a mechanic suburb. There's a Macca's that's been here forever, and the car park is iconic that you go and sit there and have beers when you're a teenager. And there's a couple of...
It's not on the trail though?
Not yet. Their inclusion is 50,000 per annum.
Okay. Come on, kids.
No,
I'm only kidding.
I think Johnny might have said it earlier. The suburb is definitely a bit rough around the edges. Every venue is a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
So there's something to offer every venue.
Yeah.
And what we're trying to push in-house is that the conversations we have over the bar should be like, oh, where have you been?
Yeah.
Oh, sick. They do great beers.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Where are you guys headed next?
Yeah.
Oh, they have live music.
Yeah.
You're going to have a great night. Just pay it forward. It's going to go around in
Well,
circles.
last night, Thursday evening, there was cornhole championships on at your place. There was live music on it. Bucketies. There was trivia on it. Maybe a couple of places as well.
Yeah.
It was me and Johnny drinking beer here. It was the entertainment here, I guess. But,
Exactly. He would pay money for it.
but from what I understand, when you did the opening weekend, there was some crazy events
The-
on. Like, who did the dash and racing?
Bucketies did dash hound racing. We basically copy pasted what we did the first year because it went really well.
Yeah.
We did chili eating comp, which is
Okay.
amazing.
Yeah.
And then the very, very OG skate shop on Pittwater Road, Borders Skate Shop, hosted a skate demo in the car
Yeah.
park,
Nice.
and it absolutely went off.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
It was kind of permission to be quirky.
Yeah.
It was like permission to celebrate the area. Like if you're going to Brookie Fest, it's like, everyone has their own connotations and associations. And so like there was some awesome stuff and like real creativity. And again, like if you've got a dash hound, you can race one, right? And if you want to sweat your face off having chilies, then that's up to you.
Yeah, and to put a bit of perspective into it,
Yeah.
like dash hound racing is the iconic part of Brookie Fest, and I think you can start at 11 o'clock on the Saturday.
Yeah.
There were 200 people lined up to get
Jesus.
into Bucketies at 11 a.m. on
All with
Saturday
their own
morning.
dash and.
A lot of them, yeah, and they were full by 11:30.
I've never seen it, but I'm hoping there's videos
It's
out there because I'd
funny.
imagine it's pretty damn
It's
funny.
funny.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
Amazing, yeah. the
Tiny
concept-
legs,
Yeah.
There's nothing better than that.
Like
Just down a little path.
Yeah,
is
and
so
it's something
good.
I think we've all agreed to a little bit is that we need to
All need a dash and.
we need to facilitate fun in Brookvale.
Yeah.
It's really hard to get people off the couch.
Yeah.
Netflix is really, really good at the
Yeah.
moment. We need to insert some theatre to get punters out on the road
Yeah.
and stuff like dogs racing and chili eating comps
Yeah.
and all this other stuff. It gets people out of there.
Well, I think what's impressed me as well is the size of most of the places as well. Like, photo stuff seen for when we've done stories, got listings on Crafty Pint for the various breweries. I guess they're almost like tied to shots at the bar or people enjoying themselves. And then I come in here to Freshwater, I'm like, fuck, this is big. And then went to Bucketies yesterday and it's like, oh, this angle
Pockety.
different than I was expecting, but you've got your beer garden out the back, it's big. And you guys have got loads of space out the front
Yeah.
as well as indoors. And it's like,
Give us more venue numbers.
so no, there is that space to, I guess, to be creative and do, interesting stuff. And obviously, Nick's bringing the venue on board. It's
Yeah.
going to be, big sports bar kind of thing as well. And it's been quite amazing, like the scope and the size of the places as well.
yeah.
So-
And we have the big dogs, Four Pines, in our neighborhood as
Yeah.
well. So they're really able to amplify us as well.
Yeah.
And they've been amazing. Their ability to say, hey, we want to amplify the indie guys in the suburb.
Yeah.
Obviously they sponsor Four Pines Park. So that's a big thing. The Manly footy games are a huge part of what makes Brookvale tick. So it's just been really cohesive with a lot of our colleagues.
Yeah. And in terms of, I guess I talked about it a bit before, but like just to give people an idea, again, how close the breweries are. Like, I think I was sat in Bucketies yesterday, and I was like checking where they were, and I think it said from where I was sat, sort of midway down the bar, that Freshwater was 72 meters away.
Yeah.
And then and you must be about the same distance, if that, across the road.
You could
from
throw a tennis ball to your next venue. That's the
Yeah.
easiest way to explain it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is that, how does that work? Are there people local to who have a favourite they always go to, or are people quite egalitarian, in their approach?
We reckon a bit of both.
Yeah, I reckon so. Like, I think it makes it easier, if you're not, and there's always the FOMO, right? So if like there are a group of people in here, they're having a good time, they do get a bit twitchy after a couple of beers and go, I wonder what else is happening. So it does mean you get that little bit of rotation, but then you do have the kind of familiar faces that come in. But I think it's one of those things that's better together, particularly because it's so close.
Yeah.
And also it just makes, I don't know, it makes the experience more interesting, because we've all, part of the reason why we kind of formed a collective is that if we all know what each other's up to, then we can kind of offer something alternative.
Yeah.
So consumer wins, right? As a fucking beer frother myself, like there's nowhere better to go, because you can go from A to B to C and know that it's all going to be different.
Yeah.
Like the spaces look different. The take on things is very different, and so it's great.
Yeah, and I think the community angle on seeing that, hey Johnny, I ran out of salt. Can I borrow it? I ran out of hops. I ran out of it. When they see that we're actively working together, if I'm to look at a competitor that might be like Manly, which is an unbelievable visitation suburb, has beautiful waters on both sides. There's no way they're doing that with each other. You know what I mean? Like we can do that because we're all small indie guys. Yeah. We're all working together to make sure that our business run harmoniously.
Johnny's like, give them a bag of sugar and don't tell them.
Yeah. What happened to my margarita?
Dave from Dad and Dave's, he is a genuine hero. He's saved up. Like, you know, he's got so many irons in the fire doing all sorts of amazing stuff. And like, if we don't have a specific like specialty malt on hand, it hasn't arrived when we thought it was going to arrive. Yeah, Dave's the first person we go to. So and that's the kind of thing. And he openly says, like, even when we were, you know, when you're setting up a brewery and your forklift breaks down. Yeah. Fortunately, there's enough people that you can go to that might have a forklift over the road.
Which model do I like the best out of all my mates' forklifts?
Or just, you know, advice. And that's the good thing about it is that, you know, there's an open line of communication.
Yeah. And Johnny and I, especially over the last year, we get to bump heads really, really good and ask ourselves some challenging questions about business. Yeah. And it's not, I'm going to lose patronage if I get some advice off Johnny or vice versa. It's just the prosperity of the suburb. That's the way we look at it.
Yeah, that's great. And sort of stepping back a bit, how do you sort of view the role of beer tourism within the beer industry now, especially in that sort of changed landscape? Because I think there was a lot of talk about it sort of pre-COVID, and like when we did One Strong Good Beer Week, we were already pushing. There was a lot of visitation from overseas, especially New Zealand and whatever. And I guess there was an obvious pause. And do you think that's a way? It's, you know, an important tool, I guess, to bring people back into the beer industry?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I mean, you know, this is where it's quite easy to just get stuck in your bubble. And it's quite easy just to sort of go, all right, well, if we can communicate to this demographic that lives this close, then we can, you know, get going. But
I suppose that helps you sort of think a bit differently. Instead of going, oh, well, let's just get our offering right. It's like, who are we actually really trying to bring in?
Well,
it has to fit in the circle.
I don't know, there's a beach called Manly just over there. It's quite a good one.
Yeah, they get a lot of people there.
Right? And the number of hotels, Airbnbs, and and that's part of why the Brookie Trail is useful, is because at least you've got something tangible that you can say to one of these big hotels, don't push people to go to the Hunter Valley, come here.
Yeah. Something.
And that, and you know, we're speaking to Destination New South Wales, we're, you know, trying to get better relationship, you know, just getting on Sydney.com, those sort of things, as you know, there are heaps of hits that, you know, we're 5 minutes from, you know, an Uber from Manly. There's a
the fryers
away. Ship time.
Yeah. We realize
going to be big.
Yeah. We realize that there is a bit of a bigger purpose now about the suburb. Yeah. And to think that we have a bit of a hand in that, I'm chuffed. That's cool. To think 5 years from now, there might be 3 times as many people that come and visit Brookvale. Yeah. And I'll get to have a beer with Johnny and go, oh man,
look what we've done.
We were kind of a part of that. Yeah. Like we used to be the little skate rats that just used to come and skate in the car park here 20 years ago. And look what this suburb is becoming. We can see it. We've got to keep our eyes on the prize, and it's a slow burn. Yeah. But the suburb is indeed amplifying for sure.
Yeah, and I had this question before the break saying, you know, why should beer lovers, whether from Sydney or further afield, come to Brookvale? But I guess that the entire past 15, 20 minutes has been, if you had one reason to say to someone, you should come to do the Brookie Trail because...
I mean, I think in the name of that kind of best of both worlds thing, is that if you're somebody that is skeptical about crossing the bridge and coming this far, and you live in Marrickville and go, well, I've got
Jimmy Dimmick
heaps of beers here, why would I bother? It's like, make a day of it. Go for a swim, go for a surf, and then you've got any style of beer you want available. You know, like you can discover.
What's the latest bus back to the city? Or how much is an Uber? How much do I owe Nick?
I don't want to say
Nick for Uber?
The beeline is what? like 500 meters, just
Yeah,
there.
12:30?
The end of this road, essentially, and you can 12:30.
12:30, and we
Straight
shot at
to
12.
Wynyard.
So it's
Yeah.
perfect.
I mean,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah.
How good?
It's I can appreciate it's a hard sell because it's a hard sell the other way around.
Of course.
Like to put it in your calendar and say to your mates, hey, we're going to do an Inner West day. It takes a bit of work to get organized.
But it probably
once you
feels
do
like
it-
a bit of a holiday.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
rarely sort of go out to the Melbourne, it's great, Melbourne's West. But when you do, you gather a few people and you go and do, visit Hop Nation, visit, a few places while you're over there. And it's like, I've had a little bit of a day out. It's a bit of a holiday,
Yeah,
so
I love
that's
going to
right.
the Inner West.
Yeah.
Like, I think because we go that way a lot more. There's a lot of people obviously commute into the city.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people in this
Go
way.
the other way.
And so it's just, psychologically, but
Is that like a bit of a campaign? Make a day of it. Cross the bridge. This is the times that the spit go up. So just avoid this.
This
10
isn't a
minutes.
Brookie Trail meeting.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
I'm taking notes.
I'm not here consulting.
taking notes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. No, I'd love to go back and hear a bit more about the two breweries that you
Awesome.
work for as well. I am involved with. So we'll take a quick break now, and then we'll come
Amazing.
back and chat about Freshie and Seventh Day.
Cool.
We're back with Steve Hendo Henderson, founder of the Rockstar Brewer Academy, for another chat. Hendo, welcome back, mate.
It's great to see you, Craig. How you doing?
I'm good. Now, we've spent a bit of time over the last few weeks talking about the Rockstar Brewer Academy and how your coaching, your community can help brewers brew better beer, save time, save money. I'd love to talk about if you've got a few different examples of breweries who've come into the program or the community with, maybe a specific problem, maybe an objective they're looking to reach, and how you've gone about that, how it's panned out. Have you got anything in mind?
Yeah, probably a good one for this week is to talk about a client who had gone through the Beer Quality Bootcamp Foundation program, had nailed the quality aspect of things, but then started to look at the efficiency and optimization and cost saving things. How does that sound?
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So Mario, he's from Ecuador, right? And he runs a brewery called Odisea Brewery, and he's a long-time client. He went through the foundation program, Beer Quality Bootcamp, was blown away by the content there that just took his beer to the next level. But then you get to the point after you've done that when you go, well, what's next? And in the current economic climate, obviously it's going to be about cost reduction and efficiency and optimizing your brewery. And so once you finish Beer Quality Bootcamp, you actually go into level 2, which is called the Brewery Optimization Accelerator. And what that does is it puts in all of the things that help you to save time, save money, or put money in your till, right? So to give you a couple of examples of the things that Mario did, first thing he did was a module we've got in there called Formulator Killer Flagship Lager, right? So he went from his IPA being his biggest seller and wasn't doing great volume, implementing Formulator Killer Flagship Lager to his lager, almost doubling his volume, right? Because it was the beer that his drinkers wanted to drink. So the next thing that Mario did was because he had a lager as his highest volume SKU in his brewery, lager yeast is really expensive. Right. And so he was spending about $15 per 50-litre keg just on yeast. Okay. And I said, well, have you thought about repitching yeast? And he said, well, no, I don't really feel confident about that because I don't know how to do it. And I don't want to cross-contaminate my beer and put my business at risk. And I said, well, okay, come and have a look at. And so we've got a few modules on yeast husbandry and yeast repitching. And so he went and implemented those things. So his yeast costs, all right. So what he was doing was using dry yeast, single pitch, and then dumping the yeast. We implemented a few yeast husbandry modules, and he is now able to confidently repitch yeast about 6 cycles. I prefer to use the word cycles than generations. So his yeast costs have gone from $15 per keg to 40 cents.
Wow. Amazing. That is a huge saving.
I know it sounds too good to be true, but that's the reality of it. If you're a brewer who is getting a brick of yeast and you're putting it in a tank and you're throwing that yeast out, you're literally putting money down the drain.
That to me is worth the price of admission right there. I mean, you're exactly right. It's tough times out there. And, at the end of the day, beer is a fast-moving consumer good where margins are very, very slim on every element. So if you can save a few dollars on each item there, then you're winning. I guess, did their journey continue, or do you have another example there around improvements?
Exactly. So what Mario did, Mario pretty much most of his business is in his brew pub, right? And which is where most of his revenue comes from. And so after he tackled yeast husbandry and cutting costs there, then it was about putting money in his till, right? And so we have a module in the Brewery Optimization Accelerator called Maximize Brewhouse Efficiency. So without changing any process apart from looking at malt and grist analysis and tracking brewhouse efficiency, with the same amount of raw materials on his 10 hectoliter brewhouse, he was going from 900 litres of wort to 1,300 litres of wort, right, into the tank. And they're still fit in the tank, right? And so what that basically means is that let's assume that you're an Australian brewer, right, and you're paying Aussie beer prices, okay, in your tap room. That's about $3,000 to $5,000 of revenue per brew, per turn, right? Which is money that's just being left on the table. And it was so easy to implement as well. He spent, I think it was about $80 on a set of grist sieves and looking at the mill gap and checking a few other things in the brewery. And all of a sudden, the amount of wort and therefore beer that he was producing without additional effort skyrocketed.
Amazing. And, I think a lot of taproom owners and operators and hospitality, there's a focus on the venue as like the venue has to make money, the brewery has to make money, but really for the venue to make money, you've got to have your brewery operating efficiently. Hendo, thank you so much for these sessions. I'm excited about it. If I was a professional brewer, I'd be booking in one of those calls with you straight away. If you are a professional brewer or even, just interested in taking that journey to professional brewing, give Hendo a call. I cannot recommend it more highly. You can book in a free 15-minute calibration call, not a sales chat, just see if you're a good fit for each other. Just visit rockstarbrewer.com /calibration. Hendo, thank you very much for this session. It's been great.
Thanks, Craig. Thanks for having me.
All right, welcome back, guys. A bit about the two breweries. So, I mean, Joel, I'll start with you. You're the GM at Seventh Day. Yep. Can you tell us how and why Seventh Day first came to Brookvale?
I've been involved with Seventh Day for 2 years as GM. And previous to that, I'd worked corporate hospo for the better part of almost 20 years. Yeah. Seventh Day Brewery was a bunch of, correct me if I'm wrong, you might not know, school dads and mums from Curly Primary, possibly, who about 7 years ago decided that they wanted to chance their arm at opening a brewery.
And I guess at that stage, who would have been Four Pines, Nomad, Dad and Dave's would have been around at that stage.
Yeah, that was the only ones. Mike, who had a production background, had been learning with Four Pines how to brew beer and all the sides on that. And so they all came together, put some money together and opened pre-COVID, and pretty much COVID kicked in straight away. Yeah. So it's been tumultuous, if that's the right word, 7 years. The last 2 years that I've been involved, I probably wanted to tell the guys that, hey, you're not a medium-sized business, we're small. Okay. So we need to think small. Yeah. And we need to juggle a lot of hats. Yeah. And the same person who does rosters needs to clean toilets and serve beers and work weekends. And just we need to think small, like the tomato analogy in your fridge. You don't want your tomatoes to run dead. So if they get in there, you put it in a pasta. We're just trying to think like we're really small. Yeah. And maybe don't think towards trying to become medium in the next 5 to 10 years. Yeah. Let's just be a really small, punchy, profitable business. Yeah. Yeah. So
The-
kind of
the
that's
key
where we
being
are.
profitable.
Yeah, 100%. Everyone who's listening to this podcast and Crafty Pint knows a lot about what's happening in the industry, and especially medium-sized businesses. We want to be small. We want to be punchy. We want to be making money. We want to be a part of the small industry. We want to think small and shop small, and all of us want to do the same thing that way. What do we offer at Seventh Day? We're really leaning into live music. That's been a big part of the last couple of years. Live music on the Northern Beaches is so historic, and so many good bands have come out. So we just want to foster that a little bit and just have some fun with it. And if the bands are a bit shit, so what? Let's just have fun with it.
It's only one night.
If the sound isn't so good, who cares? Let's just put these guys on. Let's them have some fun with it. Let's them have some theatre around it. The beer side of things.
Well, I know Mike was always big on the Pilsner at the start. You know,
Exactly.
Is
And
that
he
sort of
still
key
is.
focus? Yeah.
Pilsner and Lager are by far our best tap sellers by a country mile. Everything on the ale, sour, all differential types of beers is there because it serves a purpose. I like all those kind of lower alcohol weird beers. And there's a lot of punters that do. But I still think your everyday brookie local is coming in for a lager. And there's heaps of good lagers in Brookvale. Every single venue has a killer lager or pilsner.
Which I guess is a fairly good segue to you, Johnny, given Freshwater probably makes 80 or 90% of its beers being lager. Now,
Necessary amount of lager.
When I first met you when you were doing marketing at Modus, sort of up the road. So sort of, I guess, what brought you there, and then what led you and some of your other Modus colleagues to decide to go out on your own?
Yeah, so my background's marketing. It's funny because it's the bit that I'm useless at right now, but no time. But yeah, I was a massive beer frother, home brewer. I'd done heaps of brand stuff for bigger people. So like they've done lots of things for like Tiger Beer and Pilsner Urquell and also, some stuff here as well with Lion. And you know, it was I love it. I love the marketing side of things, but the thing that you find drives you a bit mad is the length of time to go from problem to solution. And it was just nice just to get closer to the action. You know, there's a number of, you can work in a marketing job and never step foot in a brewery. You know, it's just sell the liquid, you know, rather than sell everything else. So yeah, was working up there in Monavale, like right at the point where craft beer was really kicking off. Like, you know, from a marketing point of view, it was more like, here's
this beer, come and
here's
buy
this
it.
epic
Yes,
beer,
please.
do you want it? And then people and you know, it was kind of pretty, you know, marketing's a lot easier when you've got a good product to sell. And so and formed some really tight relationships with some awesome people that I'm still, you know, they're now dispersed around the beer scene of Australia, and we're still all really tight knit group of people. And along that way, I was really leaning into lagers from a homebrew point of view, and like I'd bring in my beers to the brew crew, and they were bringing in their beers, and we were kind of checking different recipes, and it was just kind of fun. And we were drinking them a lot of the time in Freshie, and so, you know, it was like
Freshy's like one suburb across?
yeah, it's just like
because
500
there's this
meters
bit of
over
a
that
habit
way.
in Brookvale, isn't there, of naming your brewery not after Brookvale?
Yeah,
There's actually a
exactly.
Brookvale Brewing. It's all
There-
like,
there-
which is our favourite
Yeah,
suburb
there is a
around
Brookvale
here.
brewery, but it's like it's a heritage brand
Okay.
now. But yeah, so obviously we tried to get to Freshie, but the way it came about was I was just cracking beers, trying new, you know, it was either at the time it was either lagers or saisons, and it was like
No,
Pilsners-
Australians aren't going to drink
Pilsners
saisons.
they don't really drink pilsners either. But anyway,
Unless it's
profitable
called a
company.
lager.
Yeah, exactly, or an XPA. So we were just cracking that, and it was the name originally was just a holding name. It was like come to Freshie Brewery. It's kind of like a bit of a joke, and then, you know, when you start kind of going, well, okay, what is this thing in your mind? It's focusing on beers that are crisp and sessionable, post surf, post swim, with community, etc., etc., etc. And then you sit down and I chat to some local designers and went, here's here's the name, but riff on it. And they were like, that's a pretty good name. So we just stuck. And like, I think the thing is once you put a suburb as the name, you've got to own it. You kind of can't half-ass it. And so that's where the community side of it comes in. And then
and who are the other two ex-Modus founders then?
Yeah, they'll probably be annoyed with me that I haven't mentioned them. But
Brett, I'm getting you out of trouble.
Thank you. So Brett Phillips, he's our head brewer. He's a gun, absolute weapon. He basically operates single-handedly.
Took some of your lager recipes and went, it's all right, Johnny, leave it with me.
Basically, I know he tried to do.
Thanks for the B-sides.
Yeah, exactly. No, he did. He's absolutely killed it. And so, Brett's our head brewer, and then Tom Bruce is our kind of head of sales. He started off as like head of venue, and then that guy can talk. So he
stepped out from behind the bar,
and he's now our head of sales, and kind of. I think the beauty of knowing we've all known each other for so many years. There's small businesses, like there's not really that clear delineation between you do this and you do this. Yeah. You kind of all get in and muck in and get stuff done. And like, I don't know what my role is.
Everyone does the shit way.
Yeah.
Are you cleaning the toilets here as well?
I have done. And I know. Probably will again.
When Freshie opened, the hype behind it was enormous, and I wasn't working in Brookvale yet. Yeah. And I came here with my girlfriend and a bunch of mates, and we were just like, yes. This is like somewhere different.
Just the whole the vibe, the beers, the
exactly, color. And it's just, it was willing to take a different avenue in an otherwise really rough around the edges suburb. Yeah. Well, no, this is the angle we're going to go.
And that's the thing is like when you're the first in the area, a long time ago, if you're kind of Nomad or Dad and Dave's. Whereas we're walking into an area that's pretty established, so we have to be different. And I've dragged my wife and mates around some breweries over the years, and I was like, you got to get the toilets right because my wife won't come back. So it's like get that right, get that stuff right, but then also just stand for something that we are, and that's where we've really leaned into the lager, like. I say grain to glass, and that's a bit cheesy, but it's like every step of the way.
I like it.
We have the kind of the horizontal tanks tapped into the Luca. It's kind of
check taps,
full gamut of making sure that if we're going to do it, we're going to do it properly. And
the juice don't lie. The beer's epic.
But I mean, and the reality is it is an education thing. It's like when you're talking to people about 6 Pilsners on tap, like you've got to train your staff to explain the differences. But we've got to stand for something. The world there's enough breweries, certainly in Brookvale, but in Australia where you can, as I say, you can get whatever you want. And so we have people that come in and go, hey, I want a oat cream IPA. And we'll say, awesome. We don't do that.
Head across the road.
And that's awesome.
Yeah. And what are we drinking here today? I'm drinking Wilbur's Shandy. Where's the camera?
Nice little mid-strength.
Quick plug. I know very little about this, but Wilbur's is a sandwich shop in Manly, and he is one of the most hustling little hospo professionals in the area. Yeah. What's his name?
Rob, otherwise known as Wombat.
Little Rob. Wombat, and it's just a reflection of what the suburb is all about, like doing collabs with other small businesses, coming up with cool ideas, having some kind of word around and story around the stuff that you do. And it's a sick deal.
Yeah, you just gotta hustle.
And in terms of like the color palette you've gone for here as well, like on that sort of Cali, beach vibe kind of thing you got with the murals, like where did that come from? Is that from within the team, or did you bring someone in to put that together?
So like I'm a pretty average graphic designer, and so
better or worse than your marketing?
Terrible, both of them. Yeah, they're both pretty. Yeah, I had to get another job anyway. So I had a pretty clear vision, and when we were chatting to the team, it was like we wanted to have these kind of pastel colors and be really approachable. Be very beachy, but also just be like gender agnostic, like just sort of say, you are coming here and we've got a pink bar, and that's signaling on purpose. And the thing is like, I don't know, coming into International Women's Day, you kind of go, when did beer get labeled a man's drink? Like that's just, I mean, there's a lot of evidence as to when. It's mainly marketing, but we were like, we are, as a bunch of small businesses, we are all welcome to everyone.
Yeah.
And that was we kind of wanted to do a bit of subtle signaling of this is what we are, and like the colors and the palette is just positive, optimistic, an alternative, and that goes through all our decals and cans, and we've got a pink can here, funnily enough, and we just that's kind of, we wanted it to look like beer but slightly not, again because you want to stand out on shelf, so it all hopefully ties in.
Oh no, yeah, it's a beautiful and distinctive feel. And with
Are you going to go into what else?
Well, no, I was going to say what you were saying before about how you got a few more years under your belt at Seventh Day, and you were saying how you sort of came in and said to the team, look, we need to think of it smaller. Has there been that sort of need to keep evolving, whether it's the beers or just the offering or the brand or whatever, to stay relevant?
Yeah. Every week, every Monday, it's almost like a blank sheet of A4 comes out. And we're like, how can we improve each other this very week? How can we get more punters down this Saturday to come and experience something new in Brookvale? So we never want to think we're on top of our game. We want to start every single week fresh. Let's go 100 miles an hour. What have we changed in venue? I've spent a lot of time on decor, and it's something that I have previously been really interested in just at home, but I didn't really realize that it'd be really important in a venue.
Yeah, we were admiring all the bits and pieces around the shelving on the walls yesterday.
Like the joke is like that we're kind of like a galleria, and if you come in every 2 weeks, Johnny says it. He's like, I'm always interested to see what new shit you got on the wall.
We
just have some fun with it. I have a work from home day on a Thursday, and I have my little 1-year-old. So it's kind of fun that I just throw him on the little bag and we go to the charity shops and find some funny stuff that's going to become part of the aesthetic at Seventh Day Brewery.
Yeah, I remember when before the GB, which is this iconic Richmond hotel in Melbourne, sort of the rent was hiked and they moved down the road to a different place. It'd been there maybe 16, 17 years, and you go in there and it felt like this organic being that had a life of its own, and only there's the staff or the regulars have been there for a long time could tell you when a certain thing had gone on the wall.
Yeah, it's a good story.
Or how that happened. But you sort of go in, and even as a relative newcomer to it, you'd be like, this just feels like a living beast that has its own personality beyond being a bar with walls and a roof. It's it's beyond the people, and it's actually it's got
There's
something
a story.
to it.
Yeah, and I always liked kind of vintage surfboards and vintage clothes and fashion and all that kind of stuff. I never thought of it from an ethical point of view. I just thought that it was cool, and I was into that kind of stuff. And now I'm kind of like, oh, it's also ethical. I can buy vintage t-shirts and get them printed, and it's a good story as well. So a lot of the junk that we've bought in-house is just all repurposed stuff. And you're right, people come in and they're like, oh, like a couple of weeks ago, a lady came in and she was like, I believe that you have a couch from my granddad who passed away here. And I was like, yeah, off Marketplace? And she's like, yeah. Oh, there it is, it's over there. And she came over and sat down on it.
Yeah, he wasn't on the couch at the time he picked it up.
I don't think so. We never washed the couch, so we probably should.
Yeah. But no, so it becomes it's very noticeable. We stood at the bar, before we went outside for 5 minutes, and you can't stop looking around and sort of taking in. You know, even if you can't work out what some of the stuff is, still looks interesting.
The cohesion isn't there. It's just like shit that we like.
We think we like. I think from an outsider's point of view, I think you kind of know what you walk into. And I think you are curating.
We're trying to show a bit of vulnerability in our own taste.
It's clear
as well.
that you like skateboards.
Yeah, we're into this shit. Are you guys into this shit? Oh, cool. We're into this kind of music as well.
Yeah.
Like we're into surfing as well. Are you into surfing?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. You'll probably like our place.
Yeah, nice. So before we get to the past, present, future trio of questions I'd like to finish with, just if people are listening or watching from somewhere else in Australia, how far and wide do you sell your beers? Are you mostly just Sydney brands in terms of distro? And do you have online store if people want to sort of get beers elsewhere? Or do you have a bit of wider distro of your beers?
Yeah, I think going back to what Joel was saying, it's all about profitability. And I think when it comes down to it, what we are 2024 was a bit of a weird year, and people had less money in their pocket, and so we spent a bit of time kind of figuring out where we were. So we've definitely gone way more local. And
Cans are hard yakka. It's hard to make money on a can. Everyone knows it.
Yeah, but also what do you stand for as well? And I think that's the thing is we are all pretty local breweries, and so we barely see us over the bridge. Like we are all, like North Shore and Northern Beaches is kind of our thing. 98%, I'd say, and then we do a thing, beer cartel here and there, but pretty much, or like a tap takeover, like but pretty much we're over here, and I think that with this many breweries around, I think also not knowing what every year looks like, you kind of, at least if you're consolidated and there's room to grow.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Like you try and flog beer to Manly, but they're kind of like, well, if I tell people that the beer's from Brookvale, they might go and drink in Brookvale next time. So Manly's a really tricky one to go.
Manly if you're going to
anywhere in between, kind of like North Shore, Mossman. That's a little bit closer towards Inner West. Yeah. There's a little hotspot in there. Yeah. Once you start getting over to the Inner West, there's a little bit of like, oh no, I'm down with the Inner West beer. Yeah. So and we totally get that. Yeah. And Johnny and I haven't even touched on the whole, which your podcast has nailed really, really hard. The whole tap percentages of trying to flog beer to a place that has one beer out of 20 on tap.
Yeah, and 100 local breweries trying to get that one tap, and someone's probably going in at $200 a keg, and
like there's a really good thing on Facebook the other day. Is it Andy who just opened a bar in New York? Hamish and Andy. Andy. And then the slogan was like, Australian bar in New York with only Australian beers. And there were no Australian.
It's all Japanese.
It was all Japanese. Cooper's, thankfully, in the photo, he's holding a bottle of Cooper's in the bottom. And I was like, yeah, right on. It is insanely hard for us with 5% indie tap share to try and get a tap. Yeah. It's like, hey, Johnny, you're number 16 at our pub. Yeah. See you in 6 months. Hey, Joel, seventh day is number 20. Yeah, pop back next year and you can have one tap on, one keg on, and then it gets rotated.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like any problem. Like we are small businesses hustling and, coming up with new ideas for the venue, coming up with new ideas for how do you get beer in hand, hoping that your beer's good enough that people want to seek it out and ask for it. And I think, that's where we can collaborate together, do tap takeovers together and all that kind of stuff. So,
to answer your question at the start, where do we distribute? We have this absolute legend of a wholesale manager, Parko, who absolutely loves you guys. And he is a one-man army.
Yeah. He even dropped some samples to Benny in Newcastle because he was up there the other day and knew that Benny was house sitting in Newcastle. He went to visit the house he was house sitting at and go, here's our latest limited release.
He basically just distributes to really good surf spots, I figured out. So he just throws his surfboard in the van and he's like, oh yeah, I've got to duck up to Newey on Tuesday checking Swellnet. Oh yeah, I'll be back in 2 days.
To be fair, Newcastle is a great city for beer.
Amazing.
In terms, that's probably the only other place that we distribute to, just because
but otherwise, if you're further afield, jump online. And
Newcastle, Sunny Coast, Wollongong, Sydney Metro.
Excellent. Well, guess we'll get to the I kind of feel we may have the answer to the hope or dream for beer in Australia on this with the tap and the what is Australian beer thing. But anyway, I'll see what you come up with. So first, the one thing that either of you wish you'd know, this is probably more for Johnny, the one thing you wish you'd known when you started Freshie.
So many things. Like, pinning it on one. I mean, I think the thing is like what I was saying in terms of like right sizing. I think, you don't know what every year is thrown. Like we were contract brewing out of like White Bay and place like that. Just as the second Sydney lockdown came in.
And that was a pretty brutal one,
wasn't it? You kind of can't factor that in, right? And then we had, this place took forever to open up because we had these crazy rains and we had to spend 60 grand putting in pumps. Like, how do you know that's going to happen? Like when you open up a small business of any sort, you got to have your model really, really tight. And it's quite hard in this market that keeps going up and down. So I think it's the advice is, and the thing I wish I'd known is probably like, the best thing is having the right people around you. Like Tom, Brett, and I have been, and the wider team. Like we've got a great team, and through the ins and outs, like you do really have to push through. But I think probably, I wish I'd known a bit more about the velocity of cash flow. Because that's a
That could almost be like a Krautrock album, I reckon. Velocity of cash flow, I reckon.
Yeah,
you know, if you've got a lot of people not paying you,
yeah,
then
people
it's
don't wanna
kind
pay
of
them.
I'm aware of
so,
that.
it's hard yakka. Yeah, and
that
then
doesn't work.
and then the
so-
flip side of that, there's businesses, you know, like, hey, we work for a creditor. Da, 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 this is what we'll charge. We'll get these people to pay their bills. So yeah, and that's not fun shit to do as a GM. No one's really interested in that stuff. But if you got 50 grand worth of bills that need paying, that sucks as well, right?
Yeah. And what about, this could be to both of you, the one piece of advice you'd have for anyone getting into beer brewing now, to be, you know, one thing they should be aware of?
Like I'm not an owner. I'm a worker. So I do feel
You're
like
saying owners don't work.
no, I'm about to say that owners work too much. So I feel like I can switch off sometimes. Be prepared that work-life balance that it might not really exist. That you're checking your emails when you're sitting on the toilet and you're like, you're just going to be busy.
I'm watching my inbox count go up as
Exactly.
we're doing this recording now.
Terrifying,
I'll
isn't it?
deal with
I'll
that
turn my
tomorrow
phone
when I
off.
get back to Melbourne.
And I reckon in small industry, you should have the confidence to pivot. And if you've done something stupid that might have been on your socials and you believed in this a year ago, but now you've grown it as an individual and you think, oh, okay, I actually believe in this now. Just pivot. That's cool. So what? Show that you were wrong a year ago and be willing to go, okay, well, I'm going with this now. I've adapted as a human and as a manager. Yeah, that would be my words of wisdom.
Fair enough. All right, and then the one hope, I mean, both of you for this one, your one hope or dream for beer in Australia. If you could have one thing that you could change or
It's easy.
that
You
would
go
definitely
first.
happen.
No, if it's easy, let's hear it.
Contracts! Get rid of the contracts! I'm not going to call you guys out name by name, but come on, like it's bullshit. Like you should just be able to buy whatever beer you want. And it shouldn't be like, this is the contract. I've been on the other side and hey, have free tickets to the footy. Hey, have these umbrellas. Hey, have these t-shirts, have these hats. All you need to do is just have all your taps with us. It sucks. It sucks. And obviously I work in Indy now, so I'm pledged to Indy. But customers should just be able to drink whatever they want to drink. And the marketing campaigns that the big dogs do are so clever with their Kubra hats and their Hills hoists in the background.
And that's all fine. Like, it's a fair battle then if it is down to marketing and liquid and whatever. I think someone put a comment on it, one of the stories we did a while ago about, oh yeah, but you guys, you know, you're only this percentage of the market, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, maybe you should make beer that people wants to drink. I think Mazen jumped on and went, it's amazing. If people actually had a fair choice, I guarantee we would have more than 6 or 7 or 8% of the market. You know what I mean? We would definitely have more of the market if it was a fair fight. So you can go, oh, you're only, you know, only 6 or 7% of people are drinking your beers anyway. So whatever, it's like, yes, that's because we're not allowed to have the access to everybody else.
The analogy I use just in my normal life, when I go for a coffee in the morning, I know the guy's name. I know that he gets the money for my coffee. When I go to do groceries, I go to an independent place first and I shop and I pay with cash. And whatever money I have left or whatever I can't get, if I can't get feta from there or pasta from there, then I go to Woolies or Coles. That whole think small, consume small mentality. How can we apply that to pubs, bars, breweries, dining experiences?
Free the taps.
Free the taps. That's our next t-shirt campaign. Free the taps.
That wouldn't surprise me, mate.
Free local beer.
For
but
me,
not free local beer.
My hope is more around beer as a category. I think beer as a category is getting attacked from every angle, whether it be seltzers, ginger beers, hard lemonade. I think actually there is nothing better than a cold beer. Fact. That's just a fact. We all know that. And so rather than trying to water down your offering and rather than kind of go, well, we can be this too and we can be that as well. Sure, if you're lucky, if your first mover's advantage, and you happen to do it fast and well, great. But most people aren't set up that way. So I think that personally, the main thing is around promoting what's great about beer. And I think that's the main thing is like, you know, we've got all these places where somebody comes in and, you know, you always get the person that goes, oh, I don't like beer. And you go, let me see if I can change your mind.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you can't always, but I think really what beer should be doing is being a little bit more like not like a bit more proactively pushing beer as
Whole.
this, yeah,
Like the wine,
so
like the whole wine
sure,
movement.
you can get bogged down in who owns your beer,
Yeah.
absolutely, and that is a massive thing. But ultimately, I would rather somebody is drinking a beer. I don't really care about the ownership structure. Like I think actually when it comes down to it, if in 5 years' time you're going to a barbecue and you're the only person holding a beer,
That
it's
could
not
be,
a good position to be.
yeah, lots of hard
So-
solos, hard
Who
ginger
knows, right?
beers.
I think it's extreme, but I think ultimately it's like I would love to do a proper category ad where it was like, you know, and everyone goes,
Yeah, no logo.
yeah.
Don't forget to
Or,
drink
you know,
beer
and
at your
just
next
a
barbecue.
fucking frothy head, you know, like that's my thing. Is like beer needs to just be positively talking
have
about
a bigger
beer.
pool for you to have a percentage of.
Yeah,
Ultimately,
exactly, because you know that people like sweet alcoholic drinks when they're younger. You know that there's people that you're going to get attacked from every angle. Where there's also a lot of people, millions of people that hard-earned thirst, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my thing.
Well, I think it's a pretty good conclusion. Drink beer.
I've been saying for years.
Responsibly drink beer.
Yeah.
Hey breweries, imagine if people paid you for the opportunity to promote your business. That's the power of a great merch strategy. It's a revenue stream and advertising platform all in one. But you make beer, not t-shirts. So where do you start? That's where OPM Design come in. They've been in business for over 10 years and have helped thousands of customers, including lots of breweries, with their merchandise needs. Whether it's t-shirts, hats, hoodies or stubby coolers, OPM Design can offer you the price, quality and service you need. Whatever your project, OPM Design can help you get the best results from your merch budget, from artwork and design to printing and packaging, ensuring your brand is presented with the same care and consideration as every can of your beer. Find OPM Design on the Crafty Pint business directory or hit them up at opmdesign.com.au. And now, back to the podcast.
The Crafty Pint podcast is produced and edited by Matt Hoffman. You can get all your beer-related news and reviews on the Crafty Pint website, craftypint.com, and can stay up to date on future podcast episodes via our socials.
We wouldn't be able to produce the podcast or the website, events or festivals we run without the support of the beer industry, whether that's suppliers, bars, breweries or bottle shops. If you'd like to support the show or partner with the Crafty Pint in other ways, please reach out to Craig via the details in the show notes.
And if you're a beer lover who'd like to support what we do, you can join our exclusive club for beer lovers, the Crafty Cabal. Visit craftykabal.com for more.
And until next time, drink good beer.